Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight. I'm your host, Josie Way, and with me tonight is Gary and Karen. Our guest, you may recognize from being here on before, because she's multi-talented, actually started all of her holistic work through music therapy, and it branched out along with, the exercise programs and stuff. What got you started with music therapy?
So I started out as a musician in, my younger years, and when it came time to go to college, pick a major, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and I had a friend whose daughter was a music therapist, and she told me that her daughter worked, I think was in a mental hospital, doing music therapy, and I thought, oh, that sounds wonderful. Like, I would love to do that. I would love to be able to sing, play the guitar, do what I love, and also be helping people at the same time. So I wound up, eventually majoring in music therapy and going down that route.
Well, when you love what you do, that's, you love the music and finding a career with the music. It's not always easy to find a career that you can get full-time employment with. So right now, you've told me that you work in hospice.
I do.
Tell us a little bit about it.
So this is actually the third hospice that I've worked for. All three jobs I created, they did not previously have a music therapist. So if there's somebody out there who wants to become a music therapist, I just want to kind of let them know ahead of time that it's a little bit more involved than you would think. So first you have to go to a 4-year degree program, and then that program involves both, becoming a professional musician and having all your clinical training to be part of a medical clinical team, to make clinical judgments as to what is the most effective treatment and how you're actually using music to help someone. So you're really having those ethical boundaries and clinical judgment skills of what the appropriate intervention would be. And then once you finish your coursework, it's 1,200 hours of clinical placement. So you have to complete 1,200 hours of what you would call internship hours, being guided by a music therapist to make sure that you're making good decisions. Once you finish your internship, then you sit for a board exam. The board exam is similar to any allied health profession like nursing or OT. It involves clinical judgment questions, like this patient has this diagnosis, what would be the appropriate intervention, or what would you expect from this patient given this diagnosis, what would you expect to be looking at, or how would you use music in this situation. Also, you have to be a professional musician, so you have to know how to transpose music. So there's questions on the exam of how would you transpose this piece of music into a different key so that it can be easier for somebody to sing or with you. For maybe an older adult sings lower than a child. Right. So you would take the same piece of music and you would learn how to transpose it into a lower key so that an older adult could sing it with you, or into a higher key so that a child could sing it with you. So just the board exam includes those types of questions, and you have to maintain your board exam every 5 years, retake, or 100 hours of continuing education.
Wow.
So in order to call yourself a music therapist, you have to maintain all of those things. You have to have the degree, you have to have the clinical judgment skills, the musicianship skills, and the board credentials. So the credentials, MTBC, Music Therapist Board Certified.
How does How do people respond in hospice when you come in after you do your assessment? Do you come in and play music for them, or how does that work?
So everyone's different. With hospice, sometimes you're working with family members present because there's oftentimes someone's with a caregiver who's there frequently. It depends on the hospice. The hospice I'm working with right now is in nursing homes primarily. They don't do a lot of in-home visits. But when you're doing an in-home visit, a lot of times you're involving the family in the assessment. So the family members are present, they're helping give you reminiscence, they're helping
certain music era, that genre that they might connect with.
Right, they're giving you
Loved ones,
stories,
yes,
which is great because then
all
you get
ties together.
right.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
What instruments
It
do you
brings
play?
back memories
Oh, sure,
for a lot of
sure.
them.
What instruments do you play?
So my primary instrument is my voice, and I sing. I bring my guitar to all my visits. I also have a really nice portable speaker that has really great quality, and if somebody requests a song that I've never heard before, don't know at all, I will pull it up in my phone, put my phone through the speaker so it has a really good quality. I like to use YouTube because it sometimes will have the lyrics on there, then I can sing along. If it's something I'm slightly familiar with, I can kind of sing along with it. If it's something I never heard, at least you have the picture of the person singing, and I have used my iPad so I can get the bigger picture for them to look at the pictures, which is fun with the YouTube videos of the old, tiny stuff, and then they're looking at the picture and they get a little bit like, whoa, how'd you get that?
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I do use that when it's a song I've never heard of. I try to pick the song that they want to hear, what's their song.
Yeah.
Do they sing along with you sometimes?
When they can sing, yes. A lot of times with hospice, people are at a point of not being able to sing anymore.
Right.
I would say I have about 50% of the patients who I see that really are not verbal. I get excited when they wave because usually they're sleeping, so for them to open up their eyes, make eye contact, wave to me is a huge thing that says
beautiful.
They made a big
thing.
connection with the music.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, two things really. How do you assess the effect you have? Obviously, if someone, wakes up and responds in a very pleasant way, that's, given. But if the person is going in and out of coma, how do you assess it?
So in an ideal world, the assessment would include me speaking to the team, the hospice team, so speaking to the nurse, speaking to the chaplain, speaking to the social worker, calling a family member. Sometimes there's not time for all that, but in an ideal world, all those interviews would take place, so I'd have a good idea.
There's a good team,
Right.
correct, with hospice. You have a nurse and CNA, you're working with a team, correct?
Yes. Yeah, there's always, so per, the Medicare laws.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, per the Medicare
Very
laws.
familiar with all of that.
There's always going to be a chaplain for spiritual support.
Sure, yeah.
There'll always be a nurse.
Beautiful, yeah.
There'll always be a CNA.
Sure, yeah.
There has to be volunteers.
Yeah.
There'll always be a volunteer. Music therapy
beautiful.
is like an add-on. Some hospices choose to hire one, some don't. So it's good to find out when you're electing.
I'm sorry. How do you answer somebody who says to you, they're laying there in a coma, what's the point of the music? What will it do for them? Or they're going to pass away soon. How does this help them? That's a very hard question,
Yeah, nobody's ever asked me that. I've had an occasional person say, no, I don't want you to visit me. And there are some who I'll keep every week. I'll still pop in and I'll say, would you like a visit? And then 1 month later, they'll say, sure. And then they just turn a corner
It's amazing.
and want you to come. But then there were some who just are very private people and don't really want it. And it's rare.
And the families?
But it does
Have you ever
happen.
had any families
I've
that
had some
prefer
family
not?
members who get a little bit squeamish, especially with the actual hospice I'm working for now. My title is actually a Reiki specialist and music therapist. So I actually do Reiki
Right.
and music therapy with the patients.
Yeah, that's excellent.
That's incredible.
So there have
incredible.
there's one facility that I was going into that I just couldn't get them to embrace Reiki. They just were very, and I said to my boss, I said, I can't go here because they're not working with me. So I'm still going to other facilities, but some people are very closed-minded to certain things.
It was like what Reiki used to get, let's say 15, 20 years ago. Now, there's a percentage of Reiki that's accepted in hospitals, but not all of them.
It depends on
I was fortunate enough to be able to share Reiki at the facility I work at and do activities, but I mean, hand in hand with the music therapy in Reiki and on the subcube unit and the geriatric, on the dementia unit, there's nothing better than music.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable, unbelievable.
and
Soothes the
and
soul.
it's
It does in the certain areas of the brain, right? I mean, it all makes sense.
it's the best therapy
Oh,
for
it's
depression.
wonderful.
I have a question. How does music therapy affect people with Alzheimer's and dementia? I've read, as an herbalist, I've read recently that they're using music therapy on a daily basis by putting it on CDs and playing it, and
I do
that
it
people
every day.
are neurocognitively responding. But I wonder from your perspective how you see that.
So I think you're referring to the iPod project, and there's actually a full-length movie that you can watch on the iPod project, which was actually developed by a social worker. However, music therapy started in the 50s, and part of our field is it's an allied health profession. We do research, and so there is a large amount of music therapy research with Alzheimer's dementia, and music therapy is one of the only interventions that really can bring back memories that are not accessible anywhere else. You'll have a person, and if you watch that iPod project, you watch that movie,
I'll
you'll
have to watch it. I haven't seen it
Yeah.
yet, but that's definitely on my list.
Yeah, you'll see, they put the iPod on, so this man, he's not talking, he's nonverbal, he's, completely non-responsive. Put the iPod on him with his music that he picks. That's the thing, is that they create a playlist for the iPods that is specifically geared to that person's memories.
Yeah.
Put the iPod on him, he smiles,
Yeah.
he's dancing in his seat, he's singing along, completely changes, like 100%. I mean, it's amazing. So, but the nice thing about music therapy versus the iPod project is when you have music therapy, you have a music therapist there. The difference is that human connection and that ability to shift in the moment, to go where they're going. So
Is iPod visual as well as auditory?
these are if you're referring to if the research you're talking about is what I think you are talking about, which is this project that to put these iPods in the nursing homes so that you can basically apply to have this project at your facility, and anyone in your facility.
I currently have a program that it's called Music in Motion, and I do that program with them on a daily basis when I'm there at the facility, and it's the music, it's socialization. It's incredible. They perk right up. I usually do it between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning when they're really full of energy, and they're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and it's just amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing, the connection, what you do. It's beautiful.
Could you explain to me what an iPod is?
Okay.
Is it visual and auditory? Or
No,
is it one
it's
or the
just
other?
auditory. So
Okay.
it's just a little music. It's literally
It's like headphones
this
or-
small,
No?
and it has
Yeah.
a playlist of 100 songs in there.
Uh-huh.
And then it's got headphones,
Yeah.
and they put the headphones in their ears,
Yeah.
and they have the playlist of 100 songs from their era that their picking. And then, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is no wonder that music is so healing, because they've been studying music with animals and music with plants, and they've had wonderful. They've definitely, negated certain songs are not suitable for plants or animals. They grow differently. But they respond beautifully mostly to classicals.
Yes.
Yes, they
That's
do.
true. The Amazing World of Talking Plants was a book that came out, a paperback book from Bell Publishing Company about 30 years ago. I remember reading it, and it said, simply talk to your plants, stroke
Yeah,
your plants. And when I stop my sprouts and my basil, and they start to come up, I stroke them. People say, what are you doing? I said, I'm giving them Reiki.
Vibrational healing.
I'm giving love, vibrations to the plants, and they do so much better than plants that don't have the same contact.
Yeah.
And the question is, why do they respond more aptly to classical music? Because they've done experiments where they played heavy metal music, and the plants would cringe.
Yeah.
The plants would shut down, basically.
Yeah.
So from a musicology perspective, or in your field, did they ever discuss that in your classes during your training? Like why heavy metal has one effect and why jazz will have another, or classical, as opposed to rock and roll?
Well, I think you're addressing the energetic aspect
I
of
am.
it. Yeah, there's definitely an energetic aspect of it. I mean, it's
the notes, the vibrational,
the book that's coming to my mind is Messages in Water. You know that book?
By Ayamoto?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
That's an amazing
and,
book.
and he has pictures of the water
Yes,
crystals
yes, yes.
after
You've got
certain
to
pieces
praise
of
and meditate,
music
yeah.
and what they look like.
Yes, yes.
And so I will address it from a musical perspective, though. The first difference between a heavy metal piece of music and a
Right.
classical piece of music is the instrumentation and the range of vibrational sound
it has like a cone.
in
a
the
heavy metal.
instrumentation.
Yeah.
So just purely musically, a heavy metal band will have a bass, a guitar, drums,
Right.
and a singer, and
Right.
that will be it.
Right.
A orchestra
Right.
will have flutes, clarinets, violins, violas, cellos, bass, drums of all kind in all different frequencies. So you're hitting vibrational frequencies versus a range in heavy metal music that's like this big.
Right.
In your classical piece of music, it's going to be like this, and you're going to go way higher
Right.
and lower, and you're also going to have different timbres. So all the different sounds, like each instrument is having a different timbre and a different
Right.
effect. Also, going on your energetic, you have the intention of the piece of music. So you have, words are everything.
Oh, yes.
We create life with our words. And so, I mean, the world was created with the word. And so if you look at the lyrics of a heavy metal song and what they are, what you're creating is very negative vibration. If you look at the lyrics behind a classical piece of music and the story behind why that composer composed that music and the meaning and emotion behind it, it's a much bigger range of emotion.
They say that Bach and Beethoven's music is probably the most profound kind of music to help people when they're coming back in recovery from accidents because of the wide range, but also Bach used to pray through his piano. He wrote music that was on a staff, that was on a sheet, but he was praying while he was playing. Near the end of his life, he became deaf, and he used to bite the keyboard to feel the vibration in the keys because he couldn't hear them any longer. But he was that involved in his music and gleaning the joy from his music that when he lost his hearing, they say, I don't know, I think it was from Germany or somewhere, but they said in a documentary that they had his original piano in a museum, and it had bite marks in it.
Wow, that is
Do you
Because
mean
he
Bach
used to
or
bite a certain
Do you mean Bach or Beethoven?
probably Beethoven.
Beethoven, okay. So I'm like,
I stand
never
corrected.
heard that about Bach, but I did hear it about Beethoven. Yeah, that's fascinating.
What about the Fibonacci code? Did they teach you about that when you were in school?
So Fibonacci sequencing?
Yes,
So
yeah.
are you talking about like the solfeggio frequencies?
From what I understand, the Fibonacci code, up until rock and roll, was at 440. And then when they started producing rock and roll, they changed the scale to accommodate writing things in rock and roll, which reduced the frequency from 440. And that in yoga, we have chakras in our body. Well, when you play heavy metal, the chakras shut down. Just like if you get angry, the chakras shut down. And so in the Fibonacci code, all the chakras open up. And there are sub-chakras in the body called nadis, or in acupuncture and acupressure, they call them meridians. And they open up and they glow. And they've pictured this in MRI scans where they played music on headphones and watched the way the brain lit up in relationship. The Fibonacci code, everything lights up in the body because of the vibrational frequency that it's at. But when they play rock and roll, everything shuts down.
I can talk more about this.
effect with that heavy metal.
I can talk more about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So the original frequencies of the scale,
Right.
they were called the solfeggio frequencies. And each chakra resonates with one of the 6 original frequencies, and it's ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la.
Right.
And each of those were at an original frequency. So to discuss the frequency of like the note C,
Right.
which is the 5th chakra. So it's 5, currently I believe it's like 5, I don't want to get this wrong, but it's different than what it was.
So
Let me
the 5th chakra is La.
La.
Do,
so
re,
it
mi,
was fa, sol, la.
sol, la.
It was
Yeah.
back when Bach was composing music.
Yeah.
It was 528 hertz, exactly. And if you go and you want to listen to healing frequencies, you can go to online and you can listen to 528 hertz
Right.
specifically to open your 5th chakra. Very healing. Now, what happened was they were playing everything on a harpsichord, okay? On the harpsichord, they would play in just one key. They had horns, French horns, that they would play with no valves, so you could play everything in that one key. If you wanted to modulate a key, it would sound terrible because of the intervals, the space of the intervals between the pitches. So you could only play in one key in one piece, and then if you were going to play another piece, you'd have to pick up a different harpsichord that had been tuned to a different tuning.
Right.
You'd have to pick up a different horn, and so on. So what they did in the classical era, so it was during Beethoven's time, they changed from the solfeggio frequencies to what we have now in our modern Western tuning, where they split the difference between all the intervals just enough so that it's just under a pitch or just over a pitch of the perfect tone, what you're talking about, these Fibonacci series, the sequence that starts with the root chakra, the ut, which is 196 hertz, okay? So when you're listening to music that's specifically designed for the solfeggio frequencies, it will specifically clear and heal each chakra. When you are listening to music from the Baroque era and Gregorian chant,
Oh, I love Gregorian
that's
chants.
done in the instrumentation of that era. So you'd have to use the old tuning on your harpsichord. And people do this. They do performances in the original instrumentation.
Wow.
You will then get those perfect tones. And that's why Gregorian chant is so healing and so beautiful, because they're able to sing the exact pitches because they don't have to worry about a harpsichord or a trumpet or an instrument to fit with what they're doing. You know what I mean? So, yes.
There's a lot of beautiful equanimity. And,
We're down to only about 5 minutes. So I want to say thank you for being with us. Thank you for co-hosting.
Thank you.
Gary. I'm hoping you have one story of someone's response being really good. Now, sometimes people will cry, but it's not sad crying, it's good crying.
Oh yes, people cry, and I joke with my patients because they cry and they fall asleep. And I say, I'm the only person that's going to come here and make you cry or fall asleep, and then you say thank you afterward.
Right. That's good. That's good. So how do we get in
That's
touch
cute.
with you? How
Yes.
can people communicate with you?
You can find me BonnieMayaWallace.com, and BonnieMayahWallace. That's the website. You can find me on Facebook, Bonnie Maya Wallace, Instagram, Bonnie Maya Wallace. Email me, BonnieMayaWallace@gmail. So yes.
And soon you will have, I can call it a studio.
Yes, I'm going to be in Dayville in June and July. The name of the studio is Joy Asana, JOYASANAH. That's going to be in Dayville, June and July, and in August we're moving to Thompson, Connecticut.
Do you ever use Tibetan bowls?
I haven't. I think they're great, and I love people do, and they are tuned to those exact frequencies that we were talking about. I don't have one.
Have you tried any of the big glass ones?
People have those. I think they're great. I just don't have
They
them.
call it a sound bath. A friend of mine named Amy McVie is a yogini trained at Kopala, and she invites me to come and play my flutes in the introduction, the beginning of meditation, and then the closing circle. And she brought a woman in who had $20,000 worth of bowls from Tibet. And I had been to a sound bath before in the past. I got very little from it. This time, I was walking a foot off the floor. I could not even feel my feet on the floor when she finished. And the energetics were just tremendous. And she went through all the chakra systems, and then Amy did mantras that were Hindu mantras that corresponded. While she played the bowls and she walked through, we were laying on yoga mats.
Like a gong bath almost.
Yeah, it was a gong bath.
I
And
go
she
to
walked
those,
around us and over our heads
I
and
love it.
stuff. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I could not feel my feet on the floor.
I have
I was
to tell
that
you,
lifted.
It's awesome.
personally, it's not as beautiful as what you do, but I've used bouncy music, upbeat music, not hard rock or anything like that, but bouncy type stuff. And it boosts my mood, and it's not even listening to the words. It's just the music.
Yes, I do that for myself too. I put on like anything that's happy, like just to get me out of a funk if I'm in a funk.
I go to see music every weekend, musicians every weekend, and I like heavy metal, but
We're
but
not
my
judging.
Zen is my meditation,
Yeah.
and my heavy metal just helps
Thank
me
you
get the
for
cone
joining
up
us.
there.
Yeah. Please come back again.
There's a great
Good night.
musician. His name is Jonathan Goldman.
Yes.
If you
He's
want to listen,
done a lot of
he does
work.
Reiki chant, he does Divine Om. You can download it right